Today's daf we're learning is daf Shabbat Kuf Aleph. Today's daf is sponsored by Dodi Lam in memory of her father's yurtzeit, Harav Moshe ben Meir Shmuel Bepero, Rabbi Maurice Lam, who brought nechama to so many people and continues to do so, especially in these difficult times via his books. So it should be an Eloi Lenishmato. Before we start, I just want to thank everybody who joined yesterday. It was an amazing community Sunday. I hope I'll have lots more of them. It was a great way for people to meet me to meet people in a semi-live kind of way. The beauty of Zoom, that you can meet people all around the world in a shiur like that. And I just want to thank everybody for joining, for asking questions, for being part of it. For the chat was amazingly active. I didn't get to follow while I was teaching so much. I saw a few here and there, but it's amazing how many people were communicating with each other. And I hope people continue that global conversation that Rabbi Meir Shapiro talked about people communicating through Daf Yomi, about Daf Yomi. So keep it up, join our communities, use all if you're listening to the podcast, take a look at our site once in a while, see all the stuff that's on the site. It's not just the podcast, but there's other things, articles and other podcasts. So come and join in the learning in every way that you can be part of it. We're going to start now from the very bottom of Kuf Amud Bet. So we had a very long daf yesterday. Today's a little bit shorter. Goes like that in waves. So we were talking about, we ended with this idea of kocho b'karmeli, indirect. And when we talked about damages, doesn't matter, indirect damages, you're responsible in any case, although even with Nezikin, there's a debate, Rama ben Nezikin, are you obligated or you're not? But here they talk about kocho. So kocho means I caused, if you remember, we were dumping the water off the side of the boat, the wastewater, and we didn't really have a way to do it because you can't throw it through that 4x4 contraption that you made in order to bring the water in, because if you throw it in there and then you want to bring water into your boat, the water is going to be disgusting. So what do we say? Well, you can pour it off the sides of the boat as long as it's kind of dripping down the sides. Then you're basically pouring it on the boat itself, which is still Rishut Yachid, and it eventually gets down to the water. So the Gemara asks, but you're doing that with your own efforts. You're basically causing the water to get into the sea. So how could we allow you to do that? And they say, kocho b'karmeli lo gazru. We don't make a gzera when it comes, remember, the whole issue of moving from a private domain to a karmelit is only forbidden by the rabbis. Since it's forbidden by the rabbis, we'll allow it in an indirect manner. Now the Gemara wants to know, what's the source? Umenat Timra, how do we know this? They're going to bring a braita to prove it. Ditanya. Sfina ein metaltalin lo mitocha liyam velo minayam litocha. Okay, we know this already. You can't carry from a boat to the sea or from the sea to the boat. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, amuka asara ve'ein gvoha asara. If the boat is 10 tfachim deep, that's your classic Rishut Yachid, right? We're assuming 4 tfachim wide at the bottom. But it's not gavoa asara. Okay, now what does it mean? We just said that sounds like an oxymoron. It's 10 deep, but not 10 high. Of course it's 10 high. So what does it mean, gavoha? There's actually a debate about how to understand this. I'll give you one explanation so as not to confuse too much. What it means is it's not more than 10 above the top of the sea. Okay, so you're in the water, and what happens generally with the boat is part of the boat is submerged in the water, and part of the boat is above the water. Now, what they want to teach you here is, even if it's not gvoha asara, even if 10 tfachim aren't jutting out, mitaltalim mitocha layam avalo minayam litocha. He thinks that you're allowed to move items from the boat to the water, but not the reverse. Lo minayam litocha. Now, before we get to, I want to focus first just on it's forbidden, and what he's trying to tell you is, even though, again, there's different interpretations here, but some people think that what he's trying to tell you is, even though you might have thought, this is a Rishut Yachid, it's a very interesting Rishut Yachid, it's submerged into the Karmelit. So maybe it's submerged in the water, and you don't have 10 tefachim sticking out. So maybe we're going to view this boat as part of the Karmelit, and maybe you could carry into the boat and out of the boat. Comes Rabbi Yehuda and he says, no, doesn't matter that it's not gvoha asara, coming out of the boat, out of the water, it's still forbidden to carry into the boat. However, it's permitted to carry out of the boat. And that's what we're going to have to figure out why. So the Gemara asks, why is it forbidden why is it any different minayam letocha? because really, de lo kametaltalim mikarmelit l'reshut yachid. Mitocha layam nami kametaltalim reshut yachid l'karmelit. In other words, either you can carry from a karmelit to a private, or a private to a karmelit, or you can't. So why are we going to allow bringing the dumping something from the boat outside, but we're not going to allow from outside into the boat? So the Gemara answers, what's the difference? Elalav achuda ushma mina kochol b'karmelit lo gazru. They say this must be talking about exactly our case. You're allowed to take it out of the boat. Why? Because you can do it as long as you're pouring it out, it's touching the sides of your boat and it's indirect. And we don't make a gzera when it's indirect in a karmelit. Okay, so we allow you to do it indirectly, and there's their proof from this braita. Now, what's interesting is the Yerushalmi brings different reasons as to why it's allowed to take stuff out of the boat and not bring stuff into the boat. The Yerushalmi says, if you think about it, now you might argue this in a different way, but again, you have to understand the reality of their times and what was going on. Theoretically, anything you could do before Shabbat, you should do before Shabbat. So we can't, if you need water on Shabbat, we don't allow you to take water into the boat. Again, unless you make some sort of contraption and you do it in a way that's allowed. But otherwise, we don't let you do it because it's forbidden. But when you're in the boat and you have all this wastewater, maybe it's, the Yerushalmi says it's either mishum sakana, it's dangerous, or mishum tzorech, it's a big need. Let's say your boat gets too heavy and you need to dump stuff, right? It's dangerous. If you don't dump things, you could drown. So because of that, they allowed it to dump out. Now, obviously, if it's sakana nefashot and you're really going to drown, obviously it's going to be allowed no matter what. But the point is that here you could potentially bring yourself to maybe get into a dangerous situation if you don't dump things off the boat. So the Yerushalmi says, because it's more important to dump things off the boat rather than to bring things into the boat, we're bringing things into the boat, you should make sure before Shabbat you have as much water as you need. So make sure to bring it in before Shabbat. But dumping out, we allow for that reason. So again, in the Gemara here, they come up with to the conclusion that the reason is because you're pouring it down the sides of the boat, which is impossible to do when you're bringing water into the boat. You can't drag it in alongside the sides of the boat. And it wouldn't be indirect anyway in that way. But putting it out, you're allowed to do it. But again, as I said, the Yerushalmi has a different reason, which is very often that the Bavli gives one reason and the Yerushalmi brings a different. That's different traditions from different places. Again, which could be based on reality or it could be just based on different ways of thinking, right? When you see something, again, people are always looking from their reality, their experience, it's how they view things. So the people living in Israel looked at the source and understood it that way. The people living in Babylonia viewed it differently. So it all depends. Amar Rav Huna, Hani bitzata de Meshan. These particular boats that they used in Meshan, ein metaltalim behem ela ba'arba'a. Nobody really knows what these kind of boats are. So there's a big debate, and I'm going to stick with Rashi's interpretation. Rashi views these as boats that are shaped like a V at the bottom, okay, which is actually, could be kind of common in a boat. And it doesn't have four tefachim wide at the bottom. So you have 10 tefachim high walls, but you don't have 4 tefachim at the bottom. You have 4 tefachim at the top. It's definitely that wide. It's much wider than that. But when it gets to the bottom, it forms a V. And now we're going to read not only that, this line is going to sound a little confusing, but once you hear it, you'll understand what it means. Okay. Oh, first of all, I forgot to mention, what does that mean? It means in the public domain, remember, you can't carry more than 4 amot. If I'm carrying something, right, I can't walk 4 amot in Reshut Rabim. I actually can't walk anything, but that's only to Rabbanit. By Torah law, I can't walk more than 4 amot, 4 cubits. In a Reshut Yachid, if I'm in my house, we all know this, you can carry as much as you want in a Reshut Yachid. There's no limitation, right? You can walk more than 4 amot. You can walk as many amot as you want within the Reshut Yachid, the private domain. What about a karmelit? A karmelit is more like a Reshut Rabim. And because of that, the rabbi said you can't carry something more than 4 amot. You're in, let's say, a football field. Okay, that's a classic karmelit. It's a big space, but it's not actually a Reshut Rabim. So if you walk in that football field, you can't carry more than 4 amot because it's a karmelit. So Rashi says here that we're talking about a boat that doesn't have 4x4 at the bottom, and therefore it's not a Reshut Yachid. So what's it going to be? It'll be a karmelit. Now, why are there different interpretations? Because some people say, what are you talking about? That wouldn't be a karmelit. Remember our definitions? If it's not 4x4, then we call that a makom ptur, an exempt space. So the way Rashi describes this, it's not four wide at the bottom. It should be a makom ptur, and theoretically, they say, we assume you can carry in a makom ptur. So some people take issue with Rashi because it doesn't really make sense that it would be a carmelite according to Rashi. Some people actually say that Rashi holds, and this is a fascinating approach, that a makom ptur is only exempt in the sense that you can move an item from a private to a makom ptur, or from a public to a makom ptur. Remember, we also said you could theoretically carry from private to public if it goes through a makom ptur on the way. But that a makom ptur in and of itself, if you carry within it, you can't carry 4 amma within the makom ptur. So some people say that that's the case, and that's why this would be a makom ptur, and you still wouldn't be allowed to carry 4 amma. In any case, Rashi is a little bit problematic, but we're going to go with his interpretation anyway. So you can't carry within this more than 4 amma. Below Maran, however, this is only she'ein b'pachot mishlosha arba'a. Sounds very tricky. What does that mean? Isn't less than 3, 4? So what does it mean? It means, remember we keep saying that if it's within 3 of the ground, we view that as if it's the ground. So now, let's say this has a V. Now what happens in a V? It gets wider and wider as it goes up. Let's say within the bottom 3 tvachim of height, it extends 4 tvachim wide. So they say if it does that, then it's clearly a Reshut Yachid. This wasn't referring to that. This means basically it doesn't have 4 at the bottom and not even within the bottom 3 tvachim. If within the bottom 3 tvachim of height, it gets to a width of 4 tvachim, then already for sure it's a Reshut Yachid. What we're talking about here is ein b'pachot mishlosha arba'a, that within 3 of the ground, it doesn't widen to 4. Aval yesh b'pachot mishlosha arba'a late lamba. Then already we don't have an issue and it's a Reshut Yachid. And another thing, and this goes back to yesterday. Yesterday we saw if you fill the bottom with fruits, then what do we say? It raises the bottom of the bore. Remember we said you could cancel out your Reshut Yachid? So now they say the same issue here, but a little bit different. Imalinu kane ve'orbe. If you fill it with reeds or willow branches, late lamba. So let's say this bottom part that forms a V and is less than 4 tvachim, you fill up the whole bottom, and now there's a kind of floor made out of reeds or something like that. Then the floor is basically raised, and if above that it's 4 tvachim wide, then already again it's a Reshut Yachid, and you can actually carry within that space. So now, Matkif la Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman questions and says, V'lema gud achit machitzta. Why don't we say, here's our thing, let's make the walls come down in an imaginary fashion. Meaning, if at the top it's 10 tvachim wide, why don't we view it as if those walls go all the way straight down, even though they come to a V? And I see someone asked about chokekin lahashlim. So there, it's kind of the same idea here. This is the reverse, where we can kind of view these imaginary mechitzot, kind of the same idea as chokekin lahashlim, that we kind of view it as if it extended out. Here also, we can view as if there's these imaginary mechitzot that come down, and then if we can view imaginary mechitzot, they'll be wider than 4 tvachim. And therefore, we should view this as a private domain. And he continues to say, Milo Tanya, don't we have a braita that says, Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Na'atz kaneh bereshut harabim, u'beroshot chaskal, v'zarak v'nachal gabav chayav. This is what we call the basketball case. Okay, you have a basketball hoop. You have a big beam, okay? It's taller than 10 tvachim off the ground. You have a basket hanging off of this beam, and the basket is 4 by 4 wide. If you throw something and it falls into that basket, you're obligated. Alma amrinan gud achit machitzta. Even though the walls are not 10 tvachim long, we view that basket as if the walls come all the way down. Okay, so because it's 4 by 4 and it's at height of 10, above 10, we view them as if they come down and as if they go all the way to the ground. So, and therefore, if you throw something, remember, this basketball hoop is in the middle of the street, Reshut Rabin. You throw something, it lands on top, you're obligated for passing something from a public to a private. Because even though this really isn't what you would imagine as a private domain, we view it as if it's a private domain, as if the mechitzas imaginarily come, or I don't know if that's a word, but they come all the way down. So hachanami, you would say the same thing here, right? Alma amrinan good achet mechitzta. We say, we view those imaginary walls as if they drop down. Hachanami, you should say the same thing on the boat. Nema good achet mechitzta. So that's Rav Nachman's question. This flow of the Gemara is going to be a little bit confusing, so I want to keep it intact. Rav Nachman asked the following question. Why do we view that boat as if it's not a Rishut Yachid? Theoretically, we should view those side mechitzot as coming down. Matkefla Rabbi Yosef, based on Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda about this case, about the traskal, about the basketball net. So Matkefla Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef now questions and says, "V'lo shmiya lehu lahada amar Rabbi Yehuda amarav." He now questions the question of Rav Nachman. He says, "What kind of a question are you asking? You're asking for Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, but doesn't Rabbi Yehuda say in the name of Rav Umatu ba mishum Rabbi Chia?" And some people say in the name of Rabbi Chia. B'tane Allah, there was a braita that said about that braita, b'chachamim potrim. In that braita, only Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda was mentioned. But another braita says, by the way, the rabbis disagree. And they say, if you throw something onto that basketball hoop, no way do those mechitzot go down. No, we don't view them as going down. They exempt you. That's not considered a private domain. So therefore, he says, don't ask questions from that case. Amar le Abaye. Abaye now, and this is why it gets confusing, he's going to go against the attack of Rav Yosef on Rav Nachman's attack. So basically, he's going to say, Rav Nachman has a good question. Because you're comparing apples and oranges. When you bring the Traskal case in, that's not comparable to our case, and we'll see why in a minute. You don't really think that we should say good achet mechitzta in the boat case? Tanya, doesn't it say in a braita, Amud bereshut harabim gavoa asara v'rachav arba'a? If you have a pillar, a beam, in the reshut harabim, 10 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide, however we're going to learn right now, it's only 4 tefachim wide at the top. This is going to be exactly like our boat. Ve'ein b'ikaro arba'a. But at the bottom, it doesn't have 4. It's narrow at the bottom. V'yesh b'katzer shelo shlosha. Okay, it has only 3 at the bottom. V'zarak v'nach al gabav. And you throw something onto there, chayav. You're obligated. Why are you obligated here? Alma amrinan good achet mechitzta. Hachanami good achet mechitzta. So they say, look, you say good achet mechitzta. And he says, your comparison of comparing it to the Traskal case is not a fair comparison because it's much more similar to this pillar case. Why? Midi iria hatam havile mechitza shagdiim bok imbo. Hacha havile mechitza she'en agdiim bok imbo. What's the problem with this Traskal case? Imagine a basketball hoop. Now, if goats go running under that mechitza, are they going to be able to get through? Of course, because it's way up in the air. It's not on the ground. Because of that, we don't call it a mechitza. That's why the rabbis don't say good achet mechitza there, because the goats can pass through. We talked about this before, about levud, how the goats can pass through, right? In a sukkah, your sukkah wall has to be within 3 tefachim of the ground. Otherwise, it's not a wall because the goats can get in. So therefore, this traskal, this little basket hanging up there at the top of a pole, allows all the goats to get through. It's a problem. But the beam, even though it's not 4 tefachim wide, still, it's got a base at the bottom. Likewise, the boat has something at the bottom. The gediyim can't get through there. Okay, and because of that, we do say good achet mechitzta. So now we're back to our original question of Rav Nachman. Why don't we say here good achet mechitzta? Imagine that the mechitzta will come down, and you can view this as if it's fine, as if it's a reshut yachid, and you can carry within it. So Amar le Rav Acha bered Rav Acha le Rav Ashi. He questions Abaye and he says, what do you mean? When you view those imaginary mechitzot coming down, you now have space on the sides of the boat that you're basically considering private domain because you're saying we're going to extend the boat outside the measurements of the boat. And in that space, what can happen? Well, fish can pass through, right? Maybe not goats because there's no goats in the water, but there are fish that could swim through. If there are fish that can swim through, then we view that space as open. So you can't say good achet mechitzta because if you put these imaginary walls, in fact, fish can swim through those walls. So therefore, why are you saying that that's not a problem? So Amar le b'ki'at dagim lo shmei b'ki'ah. Fish going through is not considered ruining a mechitza. Why is this? So Rashi says, lefisha einam nir'im. They're not noticeable. Now, I assume what this means, I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds to me like what he's saying is, it's true that fish can get in that imaginary space, but when you're in the boat, you can't see the fish that are passing through. So if you imagine the space of the boat opening up wider, you still don't see the fish going through. Whereas when you have this basketball net up in the air, of course you would see anything that's going through because there's no actual walls. But here there's walls, and in the pillar there's walls, and things can't actually pass through. And even if fish could pass through on the sides, that's still not considered. It's not going to cancel it out because it's not noticeable at all that there's fish going through. And now we're going to prove Minat Timra. How do we know that Beki'at Dagim Lo Shmei Beki'ah? We're going to prove it from somewhere else. Debai Mine Rav Tavla, should be from Mirav. He asked Rav the following question. Mechitzat Tluya, I forgot to mention this. This whole thing is called a Mechitzat Tluya, a hanging Mechitza. So Mechitzat Tluya, Marbin Mechitzat Tluya Ma'u Shetatir Bechorva. If you have a place that's an old area, right, it's a destroyed building, and the mechitza is broken at the bottom. So is a mechitza tluya going to matir this churba, or are we going to view it as a private domain if the wall is broken at the bottom? So Amarle, ein mechitza tluya materet ela b'mayim. The only way we can use a mechitza tluya, a hanging mechitza, okay, when we say good achit mechitza, is only to allow, and this is very interesting, it doesn't actually mean only in the water, and this is actually going to be, even though it doesn't look like this from the Gemara, but it's actually going to answer Rav Nachman's question. Rav Nachman's question is, why don't we say good achit mechitza in this boat case, and view the sides of the boat as if it's a reshid echid and the walls go down? They say like this, good achit mechitza, again, forget Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. He thinks good achit mechitza works even in the basketball hoop case. But generally, they say good achit mechitza was only a solution, and this is interesting in terms of the halachic process, when they wanted to allow something that was important for them to allow, they made dispensations, and they said, you can use this idea of these imaginary walls coming down only in situations where you need water. Okay, it's not meaning in the ocean, let's say, but b'mayim kalu shekilu chachamim b'mayim. And then they say, again, we were trying to prove this issue that we don't consider the Beki'at Dagim. Okay, we don't consider the fact that fish go through as an issue. Because when it comes to water, we allow, amai ha'ika Beki'at Dagim, but there's fish going through at the bottom of that mechitza. I'll explain in a minute what's the kal shekilu b'mayim. Ela shma mina Beki'at Dagim lo shma Beki'ah. From here we can prove that fish swimming through doesn't work, isn't an issue. It doesn't prevent your mechitza from being important. Because when it comes to water, we allow good achit mechitza. But again, this seemed to be kind of proving, right? This was answering Rashi's question on Abaye, and Rav Abaye was strengthening Rav Nachman's question about the boat. Why don't we view these mechitzot? But actually, in this answer, we actually have an answer to Rav Nachman's question, which is this. When it says mayim kalu shekilu chachamim b'mayim, if you look in Rashi, Rashi says, like a gazuztra, shehi lamala min hamayim. Let's say you have a beach house, okay, or a better, not a beach house, but you live on a bay, and your window juts out right over the water. Or maybe you have a stream going through your house and your neighbor's house or something like that. And you want to get water on Shabbat. Now, how are you going to get water? You usually draw water from the water into your house. But that's a karmelit, and you can't bring from a karmelit into your own house. So the rabbis allowed, and this is just like the case on the boat where we built this 4x4 mechitza kind of thing, and we said, we imagine those walls as if they go down. Likewise here, it talks about it in Eruvin. It's a mission in Eruvin. You can make a mechitza tluya. Now, in that case, if you remember, I said yesterday that there was a debate about whether this 4x4 thing that you make, that you hang off your boat in order to allow you to draw water from the water into your boat, does it have to have walls that are 10 tefachim deep or not? And we talked about that maybe because it's over the water, we allow you, because you're hanging it off your boat. Who's going to be able to hang something off the boat that's 10 tefachim tall? We don't necessarily need that, although there's a debate. And there we say good achit mechitza. Likewise, if you have a porch and you want to walk out on your porch and take water from the sea that's below or the stream that's below, you're allowed to do it. In your house, you actually have to build walls that are 10 tefachim deep. So there, again, some people say because of that, it must be the same in the boat case. And some people say, no, a boat is different because you really don't have the means to be able to do that on a boat. But in any case, what's the similarity of both? The similarity is in order to get you water to drink, which is very important, we allow you to do this. We have a loophole for you. But we only allow Gurachet Mechitza, this imaginary issue, when there's a real issue. But when you're sitting on a boat and it's a matter of can you carry 4 amod or not, we don't start saying we can view it as if the mechitzot go down. And that, in essence, answers Rav Nachman's question, even though it's not so clear directly from the Gemara that they're answering, because if you really look at the flow, it seems like they're actually bringing this to prove Kiyat Dagim Lo Shmei B'Kiyah, and that proves the question against Rav Abaye, who is strengthening the question of Rav Nachman, which was saying, why don't we say Gurachet Mechitza? But it does seem to be answering it because it's saying that it's only to allow you to draw water and not just because you're in water. That wouldn't be a good excuse. Sfinot kshurot. Now we're back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said, Sfinot kshurot zo bazo mitaltalim mizo lezo. If you have 2 boats tied to each other, you can carry from one to the other. So the Gemara asked, Pshita, isn't that pretty obvious? Of course you can carry from one to the other. They're attached to each other. Why wouldn't you be able to? Amar Rava, lo nitzracha ela lahatir bitzit shebenehem. So Rava says what they mean here is, and this is really not the pshat of the Mishnah, but this happens very often where they give an ukimta to the Mishnah. They say the Mishnah must be talking about something that they didn't say because it doesn't make any sense that they would have said that. That's obvious. So imagine you have 2 boats tied to each other and there's a small boat in between and it's not attached to them. But since the 2 boats that are surrounding that boat are attached to each other, we allow you to carry through this little boat that's in between the 2 boats. That's Rava's explanation. Amale Rav Safra, Moshe, Shapir Kamarta, Mitaltalim Mizolazotnan. He says Moshe, now it was Rava, it wasn't Moshe, it was Rava. Why is he calling him Moshe? So Moshe is either a term of endearment, oh, you're as wise as Moshe Rabbeinu, and yet you're giving this answer. It's kind of saying it in a respectful manner, with all due respect, I disagree with you, okay? Or some people say Moshe is a way of swearing. Sometimes it says Elohim in the Gemara, which means I swear in the name of God. So likewise, you're saying, I swear in the name of Moshe, what are you talking about? It says, mitaltali mizo lezo, you could carry from that boat to that boat. It didn't say, it said zo lezo means 2 boats. It wasn't talking about 3 boats. If it was talking about 3 boats, it would have said 3 boats. So what are you talking about? Ela Amar Rav Safra, so Rav Safra himself who questions Rava brings his own explanation. Lo nitzcha ela la'arevu litaltel mizo lezo. What it's trying to tell you is you can make an eruv between these 2 boats, and then you can allow carrying from one to the other. Uchidetanya, and now we're going to learn something further about this. Sfinot kshurot zo bazo, ma'arvin u'metaltalim mizo lezo. You're allowed to make an eruv between 2 boats. What's an eruv? It's saying, even though you're, okay, I think originally, I just want to see something, Pshita, right? I guess maybe they thought originally that the boats belonged to one person. But now they're saying they could belong to 2 people, and yet we can make an eruv between them. Eruv basically means we're together, which means we view our boat as one boat. That's basically what an eruv does. It makes a whole space belong to all of us. You put some food down, and the food is kind of considered shared food by everybody, and then we can carry within our space, our shared space. So what they say is if you have these 2 boats that are tied to each other, you can make an eruv and carry from one to the other. What if, and this is a very interesting halacha, nifsiku, if on Shabbat they get detached, so I made an eruv, but now we're detached, and we're both floating separately in the water. Ne'eslu, at that point, you can no longer carry from one to the other. That's not the interesting part yet. Chazru v'nikshiru, here comes the interesting part. Let's say they got retied. Now, were you allowed to tie a boat on Shabbat? Of course not. It's kosher. That's one of the lamatet melachot. But let's say you did it anyway. Bein shogegin, bein mizidim, bein anusim, bein mut'im. Whether you did it unwittingly, whether you did it intentionally, you didn't care that it was Asar on Shabbat and you tied these 2 boats back together, or whether you were anus, someone put a gun to your head and said, tie those boats together, or whether you're mut'eh. I'm not sure what the difference between mut'eh and shogeg is, but somehow you mistakenly did it. Maybe you didn't mean to tie a knot. Maybe you meant to just make a very loose loop knot and it accidentally turned into a real knot. Maybe that would be mut'eh. So either which way, it doesn't matter. Any way you tie that knot, a knot is a knot. And these 2 boats are now next to each other. They're attached, even though it was forbidden for you to do it. This is interesting because we'll see later, we're going to get to all these things. What if someone cooked on Shabbat and they did a malacha? Okay, so if you, let's say, tied the boat back together on Shabbat, chazru leheteran harishon. We say, the fact is, these are now attached. And since they were attached from the beginning, and you put up an eruv, you were allowed to carry from one to the other. Even if they got detached and reattached on Shabbat, you're allowed to carry from one to the other. B'chein, machzalaot ha'prusot, ma'arvinu metaltalim mizo lezo. Here's, since we quoted this from a Braita, now they're quoting another case. So just to remind you, this was to say, this is what Rav Safra thought the Mishnah was telling us. That sfinot kshurot zo bazo, you're allowed to make an eruv between them, and then you can carry from one to the other. And then he proves it from this Braita, which then added this other issue about even if they got untied and retied. And it's going to talk about, and here I think about cubicles in an office space, right? This is what we're talking about. Let's say you're in public, and they start setting up cubicles. So they take machzalaot, these mats, and they're prusot. They put them up, and they make a space for you, a space for me, and each space is 10 tvachim tall, 4 tvachim wide, so each one becomes its own reshut hayachid. Remember, it doesn't need to be covered to be reshut hayachid. So if you have these machatzot prusot, marvinu metaltalim mizo lezo, if your cubicle is right next to mine, we can make an eruv, and we can carry between the two cubicles. Niglilu, but if someone took them down on Shabbat, ne'esru, then even though we made an eruv, since there's no designation of spaces anymore, it's forbidden. Chazru v'nifrisu, but if someone reset them up on Shabbat, bein shogigin, it's the exact same case, just with machzalaot, with mats or separators, dividers, instead of the boat with the tie. Bein shogigin, bein mizidin, bein anusin, bein mutin, chazru leteran harishon. We can now carry. Why? Shekol mechitza shenaseh b'Shabbat. This is a very big important line. Any mechitza that's created on Shabbat, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, shma mechitza. Any mechitza that's created on Shabbat, the fact that it exists, it doesn't matter if you weren't allowed to do it. The fact that it's there, it functions as a separator. So now these mechitzot work as separators, where now we each have our own reshut yachid, and we did the eruv already from before Shabbat. So we can now carry. Okay. So now the Gemara is going to question this. Is this really true, Ini? V'ha'amar Rav Nachman, losh. And now, what was the idea here? We wanted to be able to carry from one to the other. So now they say, Ha'amar Rav Nachman, lo shanu ela lizrok, aval litaltel asur. They only allowed lizrok, but litaltel they forbid. They forbade. What does that mean? That's only if you're going to throw an item from the public domain to this private domain. We're going to say that that's not forbidden. If you put up the 1 second, the loshanu ela, right, sorry. It'll be a mechitza lizrok, which means that if you throw something, let's say the cubicles fell apart and then you put them back up, if you throw something from the public domain into that space, it's a reshut yachid. The mechitzot are considered mechitzot in order to forbid you lizrok. Aval litaltel asur, but to allow you to carry, and now I think what they mean there is to allow you to carry, to say that this is a private domain, that this mechitza makes it a private domain, that now, again, you can carry as much as you want within the private domain, that they didn't allow. Okay, why don't they allow it? Because they want to penalize you. If you basically created this mechitza on Shabbat, it's true it was up before Shabbat, but then someone took it down and someone puts it back up, they want to penalize you for this, right? Generally, if someone does a malacha on Shabbat, we don't want to reward them and say, oh, now you can carry. So basically, when they say the mechitza is considered a mechitza, it's either you can view it as lahachmir, in other words, we want to be machmir and say you're not allowed to throw an item from public to private, this is considered private. Or you can even say like this, on a d'oraita level, this is a mechitza. This actually is a mechitza, it's true. However, the rabbis came and said, we're going to penalize you for putting up this mechitza on Shabbat, and therefore, we don't view this as a reshut yachid. You can't carry within this space. You're still considered part of the private domain, part of the public domain when it comes to carrying. So therefore, how can you say so simply that we're going to view this as if it's a reshut yachid, and we're going to allow you for this eruv to be considered an eruv between the two boats when you tied it on Shabbat? How can we possibly allow that? So what do they answer? Ki itmar de Rav Nachman amazid itmar. When do they penalize you? You're penalized when you do a malacha on purpose. So when it's tied on purpose, then we don't allow you. Intentionally, I should say, not really on purpose, but with intentionality. You knew it was forbidden to do and you did it anyway. Then we're going to penalize you, we're not going to allow you. So we basically go back and we review that line where he quoted the Braita. That's what he's saying is, the Braita is saying, you have to kind of get rid of the word mezid. If it was mezid, then we don't allow you. But if it was shogeg or mut'eh or anus, any of the others, then we're going to allow you. We're actually going to view it as a mechitza and or as being tied when it comes to the boat. And therefore, that's relating to mezid, what Rav Nachman said, and this is relating to the others. Itmar, last thing for today. Amar Shmuel, afilu kshurot bechut hasarval. So first we discussed what the tying does, right? The tying makes these connected to the extent that we can make an eruv between the two. Now we're going to carry. Now we're going to say, what type of tie do you need? So they say, even if you take the tie of your cloak, like a belt, which seems to me like just a kind of rope, some kind of thin rope, even if it's bechut hasarval. So now they say, hey, chidami, what kind of chut hasarval are we talking about? That doesn't really help us, right? This is classic. Somebody says something, and we want to know what's the reality. What was the chut hasarval that Shmuel was referring to? If it's a very strong rope, let's say you had a good, strong, solid rope around your belt, that's what we're talking about, pshita. Obviously, that would count, because obviously a solid rope would work. If the rope is not strong enough, usually you would imagine a rope on a robe that you're wearing is not going to be the same type of rope that you would use on your boat to tie two boats together that are going to pull apart. If not, amai, then why would you say that these boats are considered tied? If the knot is going to break or the string is going to break apart, then of course you wouldn't view those boats as tied together. So what's the answer? La'olam diachol lahamidan. It must be a strong rope that can actually hold them together, against what we might have thought that a chut hasarval isn't, but it must have been. The whole question was, isn't that obvious? So why is he telling us this? Well, Shmuel's telling us this. He wants to tell you that even though somewhere else he required that it be a rope made of iron, very strong material, in this case, he doesn't require that. Okay, that's what he wanted to tell you. What's that case? This is a case where we're talking, lo and behold, we get back to, as usual, tuma and tara, purity and impurity. We always seem to be getting back to that. Ditnan, as it says in the Mishnah in Ohalot. Ohalot, again, ohal met. Okay, let's review some basic laws of Tumah and Tara. A dead body is an avi avot hatumah, he's called. That's the highest level of Tumah. Most things aren't that level, only a dead body. He can make someone who comes in contact with that dead body an avatuma. In avatuma, can make the next person a rishon can make the next, or can make the next item a rishon. That can make the next thing a sheni. But there's rules about what can affect what. So let's just review again. So avi avot hatumah can make anything tameh. Avatuma can also make a person tameh, utensils tameim, food and drinks, anything. So those would become, if you're an avatuma, you can make something a rishon. But a rishon can only affect tuma to a sheni if it's food or drink. It can't do utensils. So in our case, we're going to have a boat, we're going to have a string, and the string is attached on the other side, or a rope. It's attached to a tent of with a dead body in it. Okay? Kashra b'davar hama'amida, if it's connected with a rope that's very strong, mevi la tum'ah, then it's going to pass the tum'ah along, meaning the tum'ah is going to go from the ohel of the mate, from the tent where the dead body is. It's going to make that rope, listen to this, avi avot hatumah, it's going to have the exact same status as the dead body, which means it's going to make the boat an avatuma, which means that everything in the boat is going to become a rishon l'tumah, okay? And then, right, the avi avot hatumah, that will be an ava, will make everything in the boat, it'll make it tameh. But if you drop it down a level, let me just check that I got that all right, because I think I might have, 1 second. According to this, 1 second, I want to make sure. 1 second. So if it becomes what we're going to say now, Amar Shmuel, v'hu shekshura b'shalshelet Shabbat barzel. Okay, let's just explain what this means. If it was made with iron, then le'inyan tum'ahi dichtiv b'chalal cherev. Cherev hareu kechalal. There's a special pasuk that talks about a mate, and it says, Kol asher yigal pnei hasadeh, if you touch something on the field, b'chalal cherev, was someone who died by the sword, o b'met, or the dead body, or be'etzem adam, or a bone, o b'kever, yitma shivat yamim. And what they learn from there, because it says halal cherev, they mention a sword, that anything that's like a sword that touches a dead body is going to have the same status as the dead body itself. And therefore, we're going to say that there, it had to be barzel in order for it to transfer the tumah to the boat that would then mess up the kelim in the boat. Okay, and then everything, because that would have the same status. That would be an av. It would make the boat a rishon, and then it would be matame. Even that's where I was missing it. Okay, now I got it. Again, you have the dead body. It comes in contact with the rope. The rope is made of. It's actually not a rope. It's like a chain. The chain becomes the same status as the dead body. That then makes the boat an avatuma. The boat makes, no, because then if it's an av, that's where I'm getting confused. It should be, makes the boat an av, right? Then all the kelim in the boat become a rishon, and then that's mitame, all the food in the kelim. So everything in that boat is going to be tameh if that happens. If we say the rope is not metal, then the rope is going to be an avatuma. It's going to transfer tuma to the boat, which will be a rishon. And a rishon, this is the issue, the rishon can only make food and drink in the boat tameh, but it can't make utensils in the boat tameh. Okay, so there it drops a level, and then not everything in the boat is going to become tameh, only the food and drink, but not the utensils. So that's the difference between, Shmuel sets up, there's a difference between the boat having a rope that's made of metal or a rope that's made of string, of some other material, because it's specifically a dim for tuma. Aval inyan Shabbat, he specifically said, remember, what did Shmuel say? He's the one who said, the Chiddush in the Mishnah is, even if these boats are tied by a regular string, right, your Chudas Sarbal, the Chiddush is, it's not the same as what I say by Tuma, by a boat being tied. Now, obviously, these two cases are different in any case, but they're basically saying that if, right, that as long as the string holds up, when it comes to Tuma, it's only going to transfer the Tuma in that way, the way we said, if it's made of metal. But when it comes to these two boats tied together, any material will be relevant as long as the rope is tied properly and it won't break. And therefore, afilu chutas sarbal, even if they're tied with this kind of string, it's still a chidush. The whole idea is, why is it a chidush? Obviously, if they're tied, you can make an eruv and carry within. So the point is, no. Even the chidush is, even if it's tied with something that's not metal, like by ohalot, it has its own laws, and only metal. Here, it doesn't matter. It can be any material, and it'll still make them considered attached. Okay, that's what he was trying to say. What they're really, really saying is, it's not really a chiddush. It's just that since Shmuel had some other law, he said, he's telling you that it's a chiddush because he wants to distinguish it from that case. That's the real issue. We'll finish here. We'll pick up with the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Bet tomorrow.